All right. I'm back. Hey guys, Tim Bratz here. Last week we were talking about the importance of operations and how critical it is to make sure that you're paying attention to your existing portfolio before you start growing your portfolio by acquiring more properties. I see, people making that mistake all the time because they're just ambitious, they want to grow. I was one of those people, and I didn't have all my ducks in a row operationally. And I'm paying for it, or I have paid for it over the past 2 years or so, having to bring all my property management in-house, having to clean out staff, clear house from joint venture partners, having to recapitalize deals, not making as much money as we thought we were going to make on some of the deals, and it was very painful in a handful of deals for me where I learned my lesson, and now I want to make sure that you don't make the same mistakes that I made when I was growing and scaling my portfolio. So last week we talked about 4 topics specifically to help you increase your operations and make sure that your existing portfolio is in good shape. In this video, I'm going to be sharing all about ways to reduce your cost basis. So your cost basis when you're buying and acquiring properties consists of primarily purchase price, 2 is renovation costs, 3 are your closing costs, and 4 are your carrying costs. So the first one here is reducing your purchase price. Here's the thing. This is the main way to reduce your cost basis, is make sure you're not overpaying for a property. So you need to find a motivated seller, right? It all comes down to negotiations and finding motivated sellers. There's something called the 4 Ds of distress, and those include death, disease, divorce, and disaster. I remember when a hurricane came through and hit Panama City a few years ago, Panama City Beach. A disaster had come through. From that storm, a bunch of the landlords had their properties devastated and they got big insurance checks. They put the insurance money in their pocket, and because disaster came through and they got paid from insurance, they just threw their property back on the market for next to nothing. And you could go in there and buy it for pennies on the dollar and negotiate a great deal because disaster rolled through, right? That is an opportunity for you to come in and help somebody out of a tough situation by being able to go in and take a headache off of their plate and allow you to then step into a situation where you're at a very, very low cost basis. Death. Some of the lowest and most discounted prices on properties that I've ever seen are usually probate sales. Think about it this way. If somebody passes away, they own the property probably free and clear, so there's not like a bunch of debt that needs to be paid off on it. The heirs of the estate are inheriting the property, so it's free money for them, and it's usually divided up across several people, right? So if you have a deal that, maybe is $1 million value and it's owned free and clear, 1, it leaves a lot of room to negotiate. 2, it's free money to the heirs of the estate anyways, and if it's divided out 4 ways, would each kid maybe want $200,000, be willing to take $200,000 a piece in order to get a deal done faster versus trying to wait out and get $250,000 maybe? See, it doesn't adversely affect the individual that much, the seller, the heir of the estate, by reducing the price by $200,000. You get a $200,000 discount, so it makes a big deal to you. But for the individuals that are actually taking the money, it's not that big of a difference maker for them. Another one is disease. Unfortunately, we live in a world where health insurance costs are through the roof. Not everybody has it, or somebody may have it, only partially pays for some things. Maybe somebody is not able to live on their own anymore. They have to move into an assisted living. And for that purpose, they need to liquidate some of their assets. And they need to liquidate it quick, and they need to liquidate it in a way where there's not a lot of headaches and hassle and things that are involved in that. So that can be a place where you could say, hey, here's what I can do, here's the problem I can solve, here's how much I can pay in order to move this quickly and help you take care of your issue, Miss Seller or Mr. Seller. Divorce. One of the first deals I ever did was a couple that was getting divorced. It was here in Mount Pleasant, South Carolina, which is a phenomenal area, right? Great suburb of Charleston. And the couple could not finalize their divorce until they liquidated all of their assets. And so I came into a 4-bedroom, 3-bath house in the heart of Mount Pleasant that today that house is probably worth $600,000 or $700,000. I got it for $100,000. And so I contracted the house for $100,000. It needed some work. And I ended up wholesaling it because I didn't want to have to do the work to somebody else, and made a great check on it. But that was a divorce situation where they needed to liquidate their assets before they could finalize their divorce. Is that a pretty motivated seller in most situations? I would say yes. The big thing with purchase price and negotiating and finding motivated sellers and negotiating with motivated sellers is solving their problem, right? Like, I'm a motivated seller in a couple of deals that I had to take back from bad joint venture partners or from bad third-party management companies. And I'm just like, the opportunity cost and the headache is too much for me, that I don't want to deal with it because I have other greater opportunities. And so I would rather just sell these deals at a loss in order to then move on with my life and write that off as an L, because I have several more W's that are in the pipeline right now. So I fall, like, that's a disaster and a disease management company. And not necessarily, not physically dead, but I want to kill a former joint venture partner. So I fall into a couple of these different categories. Fortunately, Kate, everything's good on this one. We don't have to worry about the divorce one. Aw, how romantic. Aw.
They say it's dead, folks.
They say it's. All right. I'm back. Let's talk about renovation costs. So here's the thing with renovations. Kind of a fixed cost, right? If you want to make your property nice, if you want to clean up the property, you can obviously negotiate. You can obviously, search pricing. You can obviously find suppliers, right? You can get multiple quotes from vendors and laborers, right? But the main one is I'm doing a mathematical equation when we buy an apartment complex. And that mathematical equation is, I want minimum a 20% return on my investment on that unit turn. So let me give you an example. If a tenant's already paying, let me use a different marker. So let me give you an example. If a tenant's already paying $900 a month in rent, and the market rent is $1,000, that is a difference of $100 a month, which is $1,200 per year. I'm willing to spend up to $6,000 in renovations in order to achieve an extra $1,200 per year in rental revenue. That's a 20% return on my investment. So I'm willing to spend up to $6,000 on that unit turn. So if I go in and that tenant says, hey, I'm willing to sign a new lease at $1,000 a month rent, but I want new carpet and my air conditioning unit doesn't work. Well, guess what? That carpet's about $200 per room, and that AC unit is, let's call it $500, not even, $300. In a 2-bedroom apartment, let's call it, it's a total of maybe $700 or $800 of investment. And I have a new lease at $1,000 a month more than what I was achieving before. So I might only be in for $600, and I got a $1,200 a month, $1,200 a year increase. That is a 200% return on investment. That is a unit that I would definitely make improvements to. Now, what if I went into that same unit and the tenant says, hey, listen, I'll sign a new lease, but I want new flooring, I want new paint, I want new fixtures, I want a new AC unit in my wall, I want new windows, I want a new kitchen and new bathroom, and new appliances, and all the bells and whistles that come with it. Now that might cost me $12,000 or $13,000 or $15,000. And in that situation, in order to get an extra $100 a month in rent, I'm not interested. So I would say, no problem, Mr. Tenant. I'll let you just kind of hang out at $900 a month in rent, and I will not improve that unit until maybe they turn over. And I won't try to get a rental rate increase or that big of a jump anyways from them either. So I'll just leave them in place at $900 a month in rent, and I won't take on that up to $6,000 of renovation costs. So that helps me lower my cost basis, because now I don't need to go and spend that money. Let me erase this. Next one is closing costs. So on closing costs, usually pretty set expenses, right? You have your title fees, your title expenses. So here's one thing I always do, is I always reach out to the title company and I ask for investor rates. I say, hey, listen, I'll go with you as long as you give me a discount on what those title fees are going to be. The other thing that is the biggest expense of my closing cost is usually legal. And I was paying attorneys, especially in attorney states, to negotiate these deals and go back and forth on purchase and sale agreements and all this other stuff. And it was costing me tens of thousands of dollars per closing. Sometimes 30 grand, 50 grand, 75 grand just to close out a single apartment complex deal. Here's what I ended up doing. I ended up hiring an in-house attorney. And by hiring an in-house attorney, let's say the attorney costs you 150 grand a year to bring somebody in-house. If they're doing your private placement memorandums, those are typically $10,000 to $15,000 per deal that you do. So if you're doing 4 deals a year, 6 deals a year, you're talking about somewhere between $40,000 to $90,000 of overall expenses that you're able to then recuperate by having in-house legal counsel. Not only that, but they're also handling my closing and my legal closing and any sort of document prep and the reviewing contracts and all that stuff. And I've been able to eliminate that legal expense that's on most of my closings by having in-house legal, and then I just get reimbursed by the deal to then pay for my attorney. So the deal wins because they're able to save tens of thousands of dollars, and I don't really take on additional overhead because my attorney bills their hours directly to at cost, right? I'm not allowed to make any money off of it, but they just get reimbursed by the deal themselves in order to pay for their salary. So instead of paying attorneys at $500 an hour, I'm able to pay an in-house attorney at, call it $75 an hour, and everybody wins. And finally, the last one is carrying costs. So carrying costs may exist if the property is not already stable, or if you're in the process of developing or building something. What does that look like? So I've done new construction. I don't like new construction because I don't like the 2 years of carrying costs before an actual product is built. Some people are really good at it. It's not something that just appeals to me, and I don't have the patience or the nerve to go through that process because I don't control it enough. So for me, I want to abbreviate the timeline. So if something is not stabilized and it's not covering their carrying costs, the big one is the timeline. Right? How do you reduce the timeline? You have a great plan in place. What is the plan? Are you lining up the contractors beforehand? You have all the material ordered, or at least in a shopping cart, right? Be ready to purchase that. Ready to rip roofs off, ready to renovate things. As soon as you close on that deal, you have crews in there doing demo, turning units, getting things online as quickly as possible to reduce the timeline of the carrying costs. Makes a big difference. If you have a 12-month carrying cost timeline versus a 3-month carrying cost timeline, and you're losing 20 grand a month, I mean, you're talking about a delta of between, instead of being $60,000, you're talking about $240,000. That's a big differential, about 180 grand that it adds to the cost basis because you weren't organized and because you didn't get the deal online fast enough and get it stabilized quick enough. Another variable in carrying costs is your cost of capital. And this one comes all down to financing, raising private money, and creative finance. Too much for this video, but this is the video that I'm going to drop for next week, is overall how to reduce your cost of capital. And by reducing your cost of capital, you're reducing your carrying costs, which reduces your cost basis. And it'll reduce your ongoing carrying costs and increase your monthly cash flow, all by reducing your cost of capital. So make sure you check out the video next week on how to reduce your cost of capital right here on the Legacy Wealth channel. Hopefully you got some really good takeaways. If you did, please put it in the comment section. I love hearing about it. If you have any questions about what I went over, please put that in the comment section as well. I'll make sure that I address it and get you a response on that stuff. If you would also, please like the video and make sure you're subscribed to our channel so you can see next week's video as well.